This is an open public meeting. It has been so advertised. And I'll ask Mrs. Coleman to call the roll.
Mrs. Vaupel? Mr. McMillan?
Here.
Mr. Tavy?
Here.
Mrs. Ezekiel? Here. Mrs. Marmion? Here. Mr. Schaefer?
Here.
Mr. Stotts?
Here. Okay, I should now stand for Pledge of Allegiance. The flag's on the back of the room. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, there is no executive session this month, so we will go immediately to the budget presentation. Dr. McDowell, you're up, buddy.
Okay. So good evening, and thank you everyone for being here. We will try to keep it short and sweet. Our theme for this year is accelerating our progress. Okay. So our budget this year, as with every year, has been aligned with our long-term vision and mission. Our vision is to develop lifelong learners by providing an inspiring and challenging education for every student, and by embracing the strength inherent in a diverse student body. The mission is to inspire confidence, critical thinking, creativity, and perseverance also in every student. So these are some of the guiding principles for the discussions that have been happening at the school level in the development of their budgets. We wanted to look at projected enrollment to see what were some of the net effects as it related to the pandemic. So in looking this year to our current projection, we're only seeing a modest decrease in students, which is a net reduction of 3 students broken down between preschool, elementary, middle, and high. So we didn't see much fluctuation, which is a good thing because we also saw a modest increase in state aid. Beth Ann?
All right, I'll explain what all this means. So these are your revenues that are included in the budget. The first line, fund balance, that is what we call our savings account. Any money's not spent at the end of the year and they're audited. Any funds that are determined to be excess surplus above what we're allowed to maintain legally, I return to the taxpayers. So that amount this year is $281,063. Local tax levy, $5,603,625. Capital reserve withdrawal of $132,000. That's to do some, that's maintenance reserve withdrawal. That's to do some maintenance projects in the district. State aid's coming in at 33% of your budget at $3,016,854, and semi-Medicaid, $7,203. And miscellaneous income, that's basically the rent that Collingswood pays to Oakland for the use of the preschool classrooms upstairs, plus some minor interest income.
This is just another way to visualize, to see the distribution of the revenues that are coming in. As with most districts in New Jersey, the largest revenue stream for public education are local taxes, small percentage in state aid, and then between fund balance and reserves.
Okay, your expenses. Your total general fund budget this year is $9,087. Not I'm doing this. I just rounding down. $9,087,504. Of that, $7.3 million or 81% is going to direct instruction and services to your children. Student services, $721,000. It's to student services incorporate things like child study team, library, staff training, things along those lines. Facilities, $570,000. And then administrative costs at $455,000. And the administrative costs, that is 2/3, maybe a little more than that, is all shared services to Collingswood, with the exception of the principal's office, and administrative costs are only at 5% of your budget.
So another way to also visualize this is when looking at student services and instruction, roughly 89% of our total budget directly affects students in the classroom. We will continue to find additional ways to leverage our resources to make sure that we're maximizing dollars so that students receive the full benefit.
And then your year-over-year tax comparison. Last year, your tax levy, $5,469,240. Next year's tax levy to be assessed, $5,603,625. That's 2.5%. The difference of $134,385, or $87 to the average household in Oakland, and the average assessed house is $163,914. So if your house is assessed at more than that, let's say double, then you would double the 87. If your house is assessed at less, then obviously law of averages, it would be less than the $87.
So how was the budget prioritized this year? There are two district priorities. Priority one is supporting equity initiatives and learning acceleration year 2. The pandemic created a 2-year disruption in learning and what our children knew to be normal. In order for us to be able to come out of this successfully, given the 2-year disruption, we believe that it's going to be a 3 to 5 year endeavor. So year 2 is what we're going to emphasize. So all of our schools were tasked with developing learning acceleration plans back in October, aligned with the specific needs of their children based on the data, based on feedback from the staff, and based on them working together to identify how we were going to accelerate the learning of each and every child, no matter where they fell within the performance continuum. So budgets are aligned with those learning acceleration plans that every school developed. And this is just a culmination of what that looks like in preparation for the 22-23 school year. So some of those guiding principles were ensuring that we meet the needs of every learner through the lens of equity. We'll define equity in just a moment. Adjust to the evolving needs of students, including lessons learned from the pandemic. And there were many. We learned about social emotional learning and how that impacts students' abilities to be resilient in the classroom. We also picked up some new technology skills. We learned some technology skills from our students as well, but we're going to be leveraging those. We wanted to support the expansion of our professional learning communities. This is an opportunity for us to leverage the expertise of our staff, for them to be able to have time during the day to come together, to look at data, to strategically think about instruction, and then to diagnose and then plan out what that looks like so that they can actually accelerate learning for every child. We also wanted to make sure that we were looking at the quality and the effectiveness of our professional development by leveraging some of the foundational work that had been done pre-pandemic and drawing on those strengths during the pandemic and then using that in order to accelerate student learning. We also want to make sure that we're addressing some of the mandated curriculum shifts through interdisciplinary learning. There were a series of mandates that have come from the New Jersey Department of Education, unfunded, no surprise, that there's only a finite amount of time. So in order for us to be able to tackle the standards, we will need to look at what are ways that we can actually do cross-curricular planning to be able to tackle the standards through multiple content areas. So for example, you may be tackling a portion of a math standard in science, or a portion of science in math, or a portion of reading in social studies. Or you may even be looking at a geometry standard in an art class. That requires planning. That requires giving our educators time in order to do the planning. So we're going to make that a priority. We also wanted to make sure that we reinforce school support, specifically as it relates with not just academics, but also school culture and mental health, in addition to working to develop our capacity to eventually shift to a more inclusive model. looking at our students with learning differences and placing them in the least restrictive environment, that requires a multiple year planning phase. And we have to also make sure that our teachers are at the forefront of the development of any said plan. So we want to start those conversations now because we know that it's a more costly model, but it will pay dividends in the future. But it will need to be rolled out over multiple years for it to actually be successful and to be sustainable. So we want to make sure that we're not bombarding our community with edu-speak. So what do we mean when we say learning acceleration? Learning acceleration is when our educators have the opportunity to design instruction around the standards, are able to regularly assess their students' progress, and then use that data to better understand how to reach them where students can be challenged more, and then ultimately how and when to intervene when students are not meeting expectations. Our educators are also empowered to make more decisions about the time and the frequency of the concepts that are being covered and what specific skills students need in order to access current grade level content to be able to demonstrate that a year to year and a half's worth of growth each and every year. We also wanted to make sure that we're defining equity. So equity is often confused or interchangeable with equality. Equality is everybody gets the same. Equity means that every student gets what they need in order to meet the standard. Liberation means that all barriers that are preventing children from being successful are also removed. We're currently at the phase of shifting from equality into educational equity, but this is going to be continued work. It's going to be continued conversation, continued investment, and continued refinement of our practices to make sure that we're being very thoughtful and intentional about what children need, what children don't need, and then ultimately how can we deliver on that promise to be able to accelerate the learning needs of each and every child. So how are we investing in that first priority of supporting equity initiatives and learning acceleration in year 2? We're increasing staff and programming in order to support the social, emotional health, and well-being, as well as the academic needs of our students through a multi-tiered system of support. In its most simplest term, how, when, and what do you intervene with children? This is coming in very tangible ways. The addition of a preschool through grade 5 supervisor to help support our teachers and build collective teacher expertise in the classroom through coaching and support. An additional part-time school nurse, as well as 2 additional learning acceleration teachers. These are specialists that really help to diagnose and push our students forward, as well as support our teachers in the classroom. In addition to the development of classroom tools, programs, and additional resources that ultimately support our intervention model. Funding to support the department and grade level instructional planning and educator collaboration, also known as the professional learning community. Our educators are professionals, but they need time in order to actually look at the standards, look at student information, look at the data, be able to work together in order to plan what that next step will look like. Also funding to reinforce learning acceleration. The theoretical framework or the evidence-based framework that we've been using since 2018 is visible learning. It's the work of John Hattie. Visible learning asks the simple question, what is the impact of my actions and how do they relate to student learning and student achievement? And are we looking at what are the highest leverage strategies needed in order to move every child to proficiency? Funding also to address essential curriculum changes. This is a constant conversation. I don't want us to minimize some of the discussion that we had 2 weeks ago during our committee meetings. There is a lack of congruence at the state level about some of the proposed curriculum changes. We believe that continued discussion as well as discernment on behalf of the district as well as the board is needed before we make any of those aggressive changes in terms of curriculum. We don't want to present anything that's going to potentially harm our children or expose them to concepts that are not developmentally appropriate. We also have funding to reinforce positive culture in school in an effort to minimize classroom disruptions so that learning can continue, as well as supporting full-day preschool for our students with learning differences. So we will continue to work in those areas. District priority number 2 is supporting our infrastructure. This comes in providing space for new staff. We are very fortunate that by leveraging every dollar this year, both general funds and grant funds, we'll be adding additional staff to provide additional support to our students. But we need space for those individuals in the building. So this is a good problem to have, but we have to make that a priority. We also want to make sure that we're recapturing educational spaces by leveraging all of the square footage within our building and creating additional learning spaces when and where appropriate, as well as reinforcing technology. Technology falls under a few categories. One is equipment. One is the actual infrastructure. But then one of the more important pieces that directly touches children is actual classroom support. So we want to make sure that we're reinforcing all 3 of those areas, in addition to making sure that we continue to support this beautiful facility with annual facilities upgrades and not allowing deferred maintenance to creep in and then create bigger problems. So how are we making those investments? We're prioritizing infrastructure as part of our long-term strategic planning. In addition to just continued investment around annual building maintenance, this is coming tangibly in the form of the generator as well as new fire doors and fire door frames. Investment in equipment to support enhanced school safety and security at the secondary level. Continued investment in our one-to-one computing initiative or our Chromebook program. Continued investment in anywhere, anytime learning. We talked about some of the things that we learned from the pandemic. Learning doesn't just happen inside the 4 walls of the classroom, and we have to make sure that we're leveraging our resources and our technology to ensure that we're able to engage with our students and our families in a myriad of ways, and that we're not allowing distance to be a barrier to some of our children. In addition to continued investments in cybersecurity and internet safety for our students, as well as continued investment in website development and communication. We know that this is an area of growth, so we're putting resources in order to make some improvements in those areas. So how are we creating cost savings in order to be able to afford some of these things? We are in several insurance funds where we're leveraging group buying power in order to get better rates for our health insurance. In addition to using that same cooperative buying power for our utilities, as well as purchasing through cooperative purchasing groups. The largest opportunity that helps us to be able to afford all of these continued investments is a shared service agreement between Collingswood and Oakland in the areas of administration, business services, child study teams, maintenance, as well as technology. In addition to as-needed shared services, so whenever there are opportunities for us to partner with other districts in order to increase revenues that then we put back into our schools, we look for those. And in the most immediate ways, it's currently been in the form of maintenance as well as technology with other Camden County school districts. And then ultimately through transportation, the use of our bus for our vocational program and then class trips here in Oakland. In addition to our partnership with Oakland Public Works for trash removal, and then through our programming, by offering early childhood programs, we are making investments on the front end, which ultimately pays a long-term dividend because our children are better prepared as they matriculate and move through the Oakland school. And that is the end of our presentation, and we are here for your questions.
So I have a question that might be a little elementary, but understood, looking at this year's budget, what are your feelings about, and I mean, obviously we're making use of opportunities from grants, but maintenance long-term, 2023, 24 budget with all of these upgrades. I mean, do you see this as a lot of investments that are made next year that will have long-term effects, or do you see this as a budget problem going forward if we don't continue to get the kind of funding that we got this year?
You mean maintenance on the facility or maintenance of staffing programs, staffing?
I was actually talking about, because I know a lot of, I mean, I think
Yeah,
the bond referendum really helped to,
Right.
with the facility maintenance and upgrades that were needed, and even things that were unexpected, like the generator and the fire
Right.
doors. But I'm talking more about the programming and staffing. Yeah.
Right. The staff that are included, they are in the grant funds, a majority of them. We increased our taxes beyond the 2%. We did 2.5% because we have all that banked cap. So we increased it by an additional $25,000 to build our capacity in our tax levy, so that when the grants run out in 2024, we've built some capacity in our budget to maintain some of these staffing positions. So I want to make use of the bank cap, but with being aware of what it's costing taxpayers. So I don't want to just to take the full nut and say, use all the bank cap, but use what we can afford and grow our ability in the tax levy, so that in 2024, when some of these grants expire, we can, fold some of these positions as needed back into the district. That's kind of the plan. As long as the DOE will let me plan.
Okay, just from my personal point of view, what Beth Ann says is correct. The higher our base that we can take 2% of, the more money that we have to maintain these things. But I don't think that 2% is going to be enough to maintain what we're having at this point in time. I'm expecting at some point there's going to be pain, either with reduced services or increased taxes or both. So just everybody should be prepared for that. It's not a panacea. The federal money will run out. Maybe it'll give us more. Who knows? But that's a potential problem. So be prepared.
So I also want to add, Bill is exactly right. So the federal money will run out, but the process that we use this year, it's a site-based leadership approach, which is an annual review based on needs. So it's very difficult to project what our needs will be 2 years from now. So we will have annual conversations with our staff, with our leadership, in order to continually assess and evaluate what makes the most sense, what should be invested in and what shouldn't. And what we believe is that looking at both sides of the strategy, so between the 2.5%, the banked cap, between that annual process and, knock on wood, the full funding of the state formula, we are going to attempt to minimize what happens in some districts, which is they make a big investment this year and they have a big cut the next year. So we're going to try to avoid that vicious cycle through smart decision making, through continued cost-saving measures without having to decrease in staffing, without having to actually decrease in programming for students.
I just wanted to make a positive comment that it was nice to see that we're looking for space when a few years ago everybody was worried about the school being empty. And we said, don't worry, it's not going to be empty. We're going to be able to use it. And everybody's like, oh, it's going to be such a big, dark, and dreary school because they're empty. And now we're looking for space. And I think that's a positive in the right direction from what we did before.
Anyone else? Okay. Excuse me. That's Dr. McDowell. Good job. You should be getting good at this. Okay, next item is the future dates. They're there for your perusal. The big one for the kids will be the 30th of May. Everybody else will be less happy with that. Okay, routine board business, approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve last month's minutes?
So moved.
Second? Okay, moved and seconded. Any questions on them? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'll abstain. I wasn't here last month. So. Okay, there's no unfinished business at this point. This is our first public comment section. where members of the audience can stand to give us your name and address, and you can ask any question you like on agenda items only at this point in time. There'll be another opportunity later. No? Okay, we'll move right on then to the superintendent's report.
Section 7.01 is enrollment. Enrollment for March of 2021 was 270. Enrollment for March of 2022 was 267. And the enrollment report is attached. 7.02 is the school safety drill report. That is also attached for March of 2022. 7.03 is the suspension report, which is also attached for March. There is no HIB report, no anti-bullying report, and then the child study team report for March of 2022 is also attached.
Okay, thanks, Fred. Business administrators, Beth Ann, you're up.
All right. This month, item 8.01 is a listing of your March 2022 monthly transfers. Item 8.02 is your March 2022 Secretary and Treasurer's Report, financial statements, cash flow analyses, and all of your financial backup documentation. Item 8.03 is a listing of the purchase orders sent out for the month of April for Oakland, and 8.04 is a listing of the bills to be paid upon approval for tomorrow morning. And that is it.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Coleman. Section 9, Finance, Facilities, and Shared Services Report. Todd Schaefer.
All right, so items 9.01 through 9.06 were just presented by Ms. Coleman for our approval. Item 9.07 is the NutriServe Food Management Company to award them a contract for provision of food service management. The term would be from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, and we're in year 3 with an option for 2 more years. The management fee is going up slightly. We're seeing an increase of 7.5%. Item 9.08 is the shared preschool supervisor agreement between Oakland and Collingswood. This was included in the Oakland preschool grant. Item 9.09 is the adoption of our the Tort Claims Act form. So you can see the resolution there. We have a new attorney representing our JIF, updated tort reform. Should we ever get sued, hopefully we don't. This covers that. Item 9.10 is the 2022-2023 preschool budget submission for approval. And we did receive an increase in aid, not enough for a full class though. Item 9.11 is the ESS support services to approve a contract with them to provide various staffing services on an as-needed basis for the 2022-2023 school year. The rates are included there in the exhibit for you. Item 9.12 is the looking for the approval of the 2022-2023 budget. Item 9.13 is the use of facilities for the Oakland Teddy Bear Picnic, which will be occurring in the cafeteria on April 29th from 5 to 8:30 p.m. It includes setup and cleanup. 9.14, nice to see Blue and Gold Night back on an agenda. So use of facilities for Blue and Gold Night for the 5th grade to be held in the gymnasium on Friday, June 10th from 5:30 to 9 p.m. Again, it includes setup and cleanup. Item 9.15 is recommendation to approve the Healthy Kids After School program for after school care for the Oakland School District. And that is that. So we're looking for board approval on items 9.01 through 9.15.
Okay, thanks, Todd. Is there a motion to approve those items?
So moved.
And a
Second.
Okay. Just one note. Healthy Kids program that Todd mentioned, the recommendation is to go to Healthy Kids After School program. That would replace Just Kids that's in use right now. Just Kids would finish out this year. Next year would be the new program. So with that,
I was going to say that. I was going to explain it to those folks not on the finance committee.
Oh.
Yeah, I was going to explain it to the parents that weren't.
Yeah, it's basically it's the same service that we're getting. They're going to do everything that we're getting now. They're going to do it better. They're going to have have employees, which the current group doesn't always have. So it's a program that the cost will be the same. There will be no change in the cost. So you're basically just flipping the provider. The program will be the same. The cost will be the same. Hopefully we get better service than we've had this past year.
I have two questions about that. So one, looking at their website and doing some background checks, they are strictly New York. How did we get or how did we choose them out of anyone else?
They're actually, I think we might have gotten an email from them that they're actually starting in Camden. So they're starting in New Jersey. We're going to, Oakland, Collingswood, and one of the charter schools in Camden are going to be the first 3 in the state of New Jersey. I had them come to present to both the Collingswood Finance Committee and the Oakland Finance Committee. And the gentleman who represents this program presented to all of the admins, including Ms. Bolden. All of the admins were very impressed with the structured program, and I have all the attachments attached online. So we have to get them approved now because they actually have to go to the state to get their licensing. So we're working through all that. As soon as we approve them, we'll get all the paperwork done. But we were very impressed with the presentation and the ability to provide some structure to the day. The staffing, I was very impressed with the training that their staff received, and the technology that they were going to use with the drop-off and pickup, and the app that they utilize. That way they know that the correct people are picking up their children, and you can go on as a parent on the app, and if you can't pick your child up one day, and Todd has to do it, you can do it electronically, so that on their iPads electronically, they know who's supposed to be picking up your child, and they can verify his identity. So there are a lot of things that we felt were lacking in the other program that they seem to tighten up, and so we're gonna give them a try.
Yeah, it just seemed like it was like New York, and
Yes.
South Jersey. I was like, how
Yeah,
did we-
they're
how did we
branching
luck
out. So, and they are in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, they're in
I know,
Pennsylvania, and I
I know.
believe
They're in
Connecticut.
seven. They're
Yeah.
in 7 states, and they
Are
have
they?
70 sites.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was digging through the camps. I see they offer camps, and the camps were only New York as well.
Yeah, that's where they started, and now they're
Yeah.
in Pennsylvania. But we're going to be one of the first 3 in New Jersey, so we're hoping we're successful.
So the other thing about them is, I think I asked in the committee meeting as well, is does anyone know if they take the government subsidies?
They do, but
They
they have
will?
to get all their paperwork
Yeah, of course.
filled out. But yeah, they're gonna, yes, they will offer that.
Yeah, yeah. 'cause
And we're
I think
actually
that's
working
a big-
through now the snacks. I was actually emailing the gentleman today because, snack is part of the program. Just Kids had their own snack program. They ran it through the Department of Agriculture. They were going to have the parents. I asked the gentleman from Just Kids, they were going to have the parents bring the snacks. I said, we're going to work it out that they run through both our food service departments, so we provide daily snacks through our food service, so we know what the children are eating, and the kids that have allergies, we know what they're being provided. So that's all in the works.
It's great.
I have a question about staff to, I might have missed it, but staff to child ratios. Did they talk to you about that?
They did.
They did, and I'm drawing a blank. Bill has it.
Maybe I can tell you here. It's
I think you
And
said it was
second-
about 10 to.
Follow-up
10.
question also.
Yeah, and
would
I
be,
did.
are they gonna
Everything is
separate-
attached to the agenda as well.
Are they going to
12 to
separate
1?
the pre-K kids?
Yes.
Or okay.
I believe it was 12 to 1,
Yeah,
like
I
either
wanna say
10 to
12
1
to
or
1.
12 to 1.
And it was age specific, and they did realize, like in a facility like Oakland, where you go from pre-K to 5. I actually sent a survey to the Collingswood admins today because I already know that Jen Bolden we're gonna have preschool, but we need to know which of our sites actually have preschool children in them because they need another license to have preschool, separate from just a regular after-school program. So we're identifying those so we can get the right licenses for all of our locations.
Yeah, I'm not laying
I
my
want to
hands
say
on it
12
right
to 1,
now.
they said, and they would never, if they, yeah.
They're 12 is the maximum
Right.
supervision. They've been in business for 16 years, primarily in New York, but they are branching out now. Anything else?
Yeah, I have 2 other things really quick. 908, my internet's not working, so I can't bring up the documents. So, but 908, the shared preschool supervisor agreement. Why only a quarter of full-time equivalent I'm assuming that's what FTE means, right?
Yes. So this person, It'll be Oakland employee, and we're going to charge 25% back to Collingswood, and that's just for our few classrooms that are here.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering why it was
Right.
like a quarter of.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
for the 3 classrooms we have upstairs.
Okay. And the other is 911, the ES. So it looks like that's a employer, like we can pull staffing in from that company, right? So we can
Yes,
pull
they
substitutes,
they provide all of our aides, all of our one-to-one aides, and then we have our own sub lists in both Collingswood and Oakland. But in the rare circumstances, and it does happen where none of our subs that we call daily can't do it, then they
Right.
will send a sub.
So that's secondary. This is not the primary.
No, this is yours. This is
Oh, this is
yeah.
primary. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that was one of the questions. The other was.
And the rates did change because not unemployment. Oh my God, I'm losing my minimum wage went up in January and it's expected to go up again this coming January. So we
Yeah.
start at the lowest rate, which is your daily aid sub rate, and then we go up from there.
Yeah, like the full day Oakland teacher assistant rate 2 is 100. I thought we were at 105 last year for that, and I was going to try to keep pushing up a little bit. I mean, I think $100 a day for pay rate isn't great, but the company's making 130, so they have their margins covered pretty well. So, but yeah, I mean that was
It's
my,
125.
was it one?
125. Full day certified
I'm
building
looking
sub
at
is
the
125.
third page at the full day assistant rate 2. I don't know what that means. The third page, first one underneath the markouts.
The $100.
Yeah, full day Oakland teacher assistant rate number 2. And also, I didn't understand why some of them were marked out in the initial by.
And it was because they were redundant. So what
Okay.
this is we've been with ESS for several years, and as we get going, we find we need specific staff that are certified in certain things for special ed. So we have those that
Yep.
are ABA certified or ABA trained or RBT trained. There's all these different trainings they get. So to attract those people to come into some of our programs, we offer different rates.
Okay.
And sometimes we only need them half a day, so we have a full day rate, then a half day rate. So as soon as you change one rate, then kind of everything has to change. But some of so this addendum, I asked them to combine. At one point, I had 3 addendums. I said combine them all into one. And as we went through it, with the changes in minimum wage, some of those things were redundant.
Right.
So we're just trying to call them all the same thing and start paying people similarly.
Okay. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
So
answers
that,
my
and
question.
instead of having me go back to them, asking them to redo the addendum and send it back to me, that'll be another month.
Right.
So I just crossed it off and I initialed it, and I hope that they accept it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that answers my questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, on a roll call, please.
Mrs. Flaupel,
Yes.
Mr. McMillan,
Yes.
Mr. Tavy,
Yes.
Mrs. Ezekiel,
Yes.
Mrs. Marmion,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Stotts.
Yes. Okay, section 10, curriculum, technology, and personnel. Mr. Tavy.
Is that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's all good. Got me on that one. 10.01 is field trips. There are none for approval at this time. 10.02 is for approval of the revised Oakland school calendar. 10.03 is for approval of the 2022-23 Oakland school calendar. 10.04 is the resignation of Danielle Durpenhogen. Did I say that right? Yeah. 10.05 is for an employee leave of absence. 10.06 is approval of all tenured faculty for the upcoming school year. 10.07 is for the approval of non-tenured faculty. 10.8 is the approval of tenured office and service personnel, 12-month. 10.09 is the approval of tenured administrative staff. 10.10 is the approval of student teacher and practicum placements. And that is it We're looking for approval from items 10.01 to 10.10.
Okay, is there a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, any questions on any of those items?
I just have a general question about the school calendar.
Yeah.
So, just for clarification, so I know kind of the federal observance of Juneteenth is actually occurring on Monday, June 20th, but I believe New Jersey, I believe they adopted a resolution that it will be the third Friday of June to celebrate. I was just looking for clarification on that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Third. Yeah, that's fine. Thanks.
Anyone else? On a roll call, please.
Mrs. Falpel,
Yes.
Mr. McMillan,
Yes.
Mr. Tavy,
Yes.
Mrs. Ezekiel,
Yes.
Mrs. Marmion,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Stotts.
Yes. Okay, we have Mrs. Butsko, who is down with COVID today, I understand. And she will not be here, so we have the PTA report. Anybody know anything?
Yeah, so did she send it to you? Or, okay. Then I have made one up. And I will do my very best, and I won't do as well as Denise,
You made
but
it
I
up,
wish I
or
will.
you're going to be accurate?
I'm going to be
just
as
wrote it
accurate.
up.
Well, I may not be as complete as possible, but it will be accurate.
Okay.
Okay, so the PTA met on April 5th. The things that they discussed and went over were the PTA was really, really active in the month of April. There was a bingo night on March 18th. They participated in the Oakland Resident Night on March 23rd. The fifth grade has had a few project promotion fundraisers, and one was at Common Grounds on the 22nd and 23rd of March. There was a spirit wear sale that ended on April 6th. There was a pie sale right before spring break that seemed to go really well. And all of the classrooms had spring parties on April 14th, right before spring break started. The things coming up are Teacher Appreciation Week, the week of May 2nd, I believe. The just approved facilities use of the pre-K teddy bear picnic on Friday, April 29th. There's a dine and donate for the PTA fundraiser on April 28th at Jalapenos. And then very much focus on Spring Fling on May 14th. The next PTA meeting will be May 3rd, and it will be they'll be holding the elections for the board. I think I got a lot of it, not all of it, probably.
Thanks, Therese. You want to do a MASAC now?
Yeah, I'll keep going. Okay, so OMASAC met on March 21st via Zoom. Some of the things discussed were participation in the Oakland Resident Night 2 days later, which they did. Then they were planning for the Celebrity Gym Night, which was a great success on March 25th. The Oakland Police Department participated. Everybody got a shirt. It was a lot of fun for all involved. And then OMASAC started discussions about scholarships for a Oakland student who is graduating from Collingswood High School this year, but attended Oakland Public School. And then there was a brief discussion just looking ahead at the possibility of participating in the Oakland Color Run Again fundraiser and to partner with the Friends of the Oakland Memorial Library. So more on that later. There was no April meeting due to some scheduling conflicts, but there has been discussion between yesterday and today by email by the Oakland board. So a couple of things that they're finalizing very immediately are the scholarship recipient, as previously reported. Then it has been reported that DMHAS Youth Leadership Grant awarded OMASAC $2,500 for each of the next 3 years if funding is available, and there's paperwork that is due on Monday. So they're working very hard on that. Also contemplating co-sponsoring a dance with Collingswood Middle School and figuring out the spending out of all of the necessary funds before the end of the school year. The next OMASAC meeting will be May 23rd. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Grace. Okay, the Oakland Educational Foundation, Jimmy.
Okay, I joined the Facebook group. That's about as far. I did it. So it was not. There was permissions that were held by Adam that he had to give me after being invited, and it was really hard to get in there. So now I'm in there.
The greatest
there's
journey.
no news. Yes, yeah. There's it looks like the last thing that was posted and discussed was on the community night that we had. So there's no other new news. But I did post and I said let's have a meeting.
Okay, the greatest journey begins with but a single step, right? You've taken that step. Very good. Thank you. Okay, the Collingswood Board. They've had 2 meetings since we had our last one. For March 28th, the Collingswood meeting, the audit for the district was presented and accepted. There was a lengthy discussion on some rampant rumors that were floating around on social media. Each of the 3 student reps gave their report. Oakland's rep is Anna Scher, and has been all year, but she gives a report each year. And I understand she's going to the University of Delaware now, so she's been accepted and has accepted them. They approved service agreements between with Oakland and several of the other districts that Mrs. Coleman had mentioned, the maintenance agreements, the IT agreements. They approved a co-op swim team with Audubon, so if your kid is a swimmer, they have access to a swim team. Approval of field trips. Not sure what that says. It's my own handwriting. Approved program of studies. I don't know what that means either. And I print so that I can read it. Oh. They approved policies. One abstention on the sports injury policy that was presented, and we've seen that one here. Numerous retires, resignations, and transfers were approved. They approved mental health staff coordinator and support staff. They approved teachers for the after-school SAP program, and they approved travel expenses that were listed at that point. Last night's meeting, Dr. McDowell made the Collingswood presentation on the budget. The enrollment for Collingswood in its entirety is now 2,246. Last year it was 2,208. So they're up 38 kids at this point. Routine monthly transfers, purchase orders, and warrants were approved. Various support were approved. Not sure what that means either. I'm doing a good job at this, aren't I? Huh?
Support services.
That's it. Yes. Thank you. It was the agreement with the support staff that was approved. The budget was approved. For Collingswood, it amounts to $81 on the average tax. Just over 80.
Yeah.
Okay, just over 80 bucks. They approved the Healthy Kids program, which is the same program that we just approved tonight. So theirs was the same thing. They approved an exchange student for the 22-23 school year. This is I don't know whether it's a young man or a young woman, but they're coming from Denmark anyway, and will be at Collingswood next year. They approved the calendar for 22-23 and a revision to the 21-22 calendar. They approved renewal of tenured and non-tenured staff. Approved agreement with the building services employees. They recognized the retiring staff. Some of those people, I didn't check this, but they said last night that one of the retiring staff started there in 1981, which they just missed me, but it was close. And they approved travel expenses. which, that's it. That was the entire meeting last night, so you're now right up to speed. And there are no policies, there are no, okay, yeah, no HIB. Okay, so we're down to, anybody have any questions on any of the reports? Okay, hearing none, is there, we don't need to approve anything at this point, so nothing to do, okay.
Don't we need to speak about the community relations and our committee about the garden? Do we need to speak about any of that? So
Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool.
Do you have anything?
The neighbors direct east and west of the school are
Oh,
wanting to put
okay.
a garden in, but yeah, I guess it got approved through the school. It doesn't need board approval.
Yeah, they were working with
Cool.
Keith.
Did they already do it?
Yeah. Believe it or not, with just the mulch, it looks better. So, they can save their money on the flowers, so the mulch is fine. Yeah, monthly, we change colors for that. Okay, miscellaneous HIP report previous month. There was none reported the previous month. We're on a roll here. And we're back to public participation. So this is the second opportunity for you to discuss anything you like with the Board of Education at this point in time. Same rules. Stan, give us your name and address. Keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. And is there anybody who wants to bring anything to the board? Okay, hearing none, we're down to item 14. This is always my favorite one anyway. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Done. Very good. Thanks for coming.